it's Rhiannon here at Model Domestic Church. I wanted to come on to do a video today that I feel like can be really helpful to many people. So I have 8 suggestions, that's what I'm calling them, for people who have older children, and also for people who have older children and younger children, maybe like a bigger family scenario, or just older children that I have found. So my kids are 16, almost 14, almost 12, 9, 7, and 4.5. So I feel like I've entered a totally new phase, and I feel like as the years have progressed, I have some things that could be helpful to other people that I have learned along the way, either from other mothers, speaking with my husband, making decisions together, and also just doing it, being with my kids and living with them and trying to understand them. And I thought maybe these would be helpful to someone else, maybe another mother. Okay, so if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. I finally am more professional and have a microphone. My husband was so great to get me one, and I'm so thankful for him doing that. Okay, so number 1, my first suggestion to other mothers who might have older children and also older children with younger children, anything in between, is to pray. I know everyone says that, and I think we get tired of hearing it sometimes, but prayer is so powerful, and having devotions can be just so helpful too. It kind of makes you focus in on one thing and really focus in on prayer specifically for maybe a special intention or something of that nature. I have been very drawn to Our Lady of Sorrows recently, of the last year, and she has a wonderful devotion. I will put a link in the description box below if anyone is interested in learning about that devotion. The second thing is walking alongside your older kids. When our oldest child was about 13, I'd say, my husband said to me, okay, so things are going to change a little bit now. Now as our older, son is getting older, we're going to walk alongside them. It's not going to be the same type of parenting anymore. And I was like, oh, okay, well, like, what does that mean? So we were like discussing it, and I wanted to hear what he meant. And I am so appreciative that he did that. And I am very joyful and appreciative that my husband is a strong leader. And that could be a whole nother video about being a supportive wife. But like I said, that could be a whole nother video. But he did say that, and that has been such an important piece in raising older kids. So walking alongside them, basically, I think for us means that we really take in consideration their interests and what they're wanting to do, and listening to them and spending time with them. And it changes telling them what to do all the time. Not that that's necessarily how we parented when they were younger, but it changes. Instead of rules and regulations, it becomes, let's have a dialogue, let's discuss. I want to hear your side. I want to hear your interests. I want to be part of your life. They are important. Our older kids are celebrated in our family, just like our younger children. They are important to us, and they are important to God, and they are important in this world. And so the process of going from not dictating what they're doing, but when they're younger, kind of like explaining what they're going to be doing, maybe giving some rules. We're not really big rule people, but we're big on like virtue building and the heart. Walking from that place of more like, this is what you're going to be doing, to, okay, how are you wanting to do this? What's your part in this? What are your interests and things like that? It's not an easy process. It takes a lot more work and conversation and building of trusts on both sides. It's just very different than I ever really thought parenting would be, and I'm so thankful for this piece. So the second suggestion would be walking alongside them. The third one I kind of mentioned before, but loving and celebrating them. That is such an important part of raising older kids, I find, is that when kids are little, sometimes it's easy to do birthdays and to just gush on them and like get them presents and make it like all about celebration, or like making them that special cake they like. And a lot of times little kids are just so easy to please. They're just so excitable. And as kids get older, it can sometimes happen with parents to kind of like stop hugging them as much, give them more space because you want them to have more autonomy, especially, how they're feeling and stuff. But it can also kind of go over to the area of celebration. Oh, big kids, they don't want to do this. They don't want an Easter egg hunt. But maybe there's something else that they're wanting. Like for us, we still celebrate baptismal feast days. When I remember, I am notorious for forgetting what days are getting swept up in the everyday, but like celebrating those milestones when they do something well at their own level, just really celebrating them and letting them know like how much they're loved, reminding them of unconditional love, whether it's through your actions or also in your speech, like telling them. And I just think loving and celebrating our older kids is so important. Okay, so the fourth suggestion is listening. I know we hear that everywhere. If you go and listen to anything about raising teens, it's about listening. But I'm talking about like engaged listening. Am I perfect at it all the time? No. But I really do try that when we have those moments to really listen to what they're saying. And if I have an older kid that lets me know I've pushed some type of a boundary with them that makes them uncomfortable. Like, let's say they share something that they really like, and then I don't know about that, da 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 da. And they're, no, I feel dot dot dot. I don't want to say like specifics, but really listening to that and hearing what they're saying and trying to understand where they're coming from. And in my mind, I really try to think of my kids the way that, the Catechism describes them, that humans, we are inherently good. We have lost certain gifts and certain graces and such, through the fall, but through baptism, we no longer have original sin. Yes, we have concupiscence, which is the pulling towards that sinful nature still. But with all the grace that comes from the sacraments that we're leading our children through and all of that time spent with them, there is this special place, I feel like, in our hearts where we can know their heart. And if they're really standing up and letting us know that maybe we've said something that has offended them or hurt them, to really hear that and be respectful of that and take that to heart. I do have to say, there is a hair that keeps sticking out. It's driving me crazy, so sorry about my hair. Okay, number 5 is lead by example. I have a very good friend. She's a very devout Catholic woman. She really lives her faith, and she lives back in the Midwest. But we were talking recently, and I was struggling through some things, and we were discussing some different things, and she had just said this, and she said, you know what, sometimes words just aren't going to work anymore, and it's about leading by example. And I just was reminded of how important that is and how easy it is to get away from that. That was a huge part of my walk as a young mother. I remember reading in all the books, and it would always say consistency. Your kids will do what you do, not just what you say. And that was an enormous part of my mothering when my kids were younger. But somewhere along the way, as the kids started to get older, and you just feel like maybe you don't fall into this, but I've fallen into trying to explain things and trying to say things, but just going back to that place of just leading by example, or you could say focusing on what you're actually doing, because that's what your kids are really seeing, even if when they're getting older. And I think that is an important piece in motherhood that can be forgotten so easily, especially if we feel like we're getting swayed by things in the world or advice that's not the best, or maybe I should just allow this and that. But stopping and remembering who you are in Christ, that you are a mother, that God has appointed to be the mother of these children, and He is calling you to be an example. I have a video about your children really want you to be holy. I'll link in the description box below if you want to check it out. Number 6, this suggestion is be honest how you feel, but be charitable and understanding with how they're feeling. So if you hear kids being loud in the background, this is kind of like our time of day where they play games and I can get some stuff done. And so you're going to probably hear in my videos are making really exciting, playing loud noises. That's them having fun right now. So just wanted to let you know what that sound was. Okay, but back to what I was saying. So when you're having one of those deep discussions with one of your older kids and they're sharing with you maybe some of the things that they're starting to question about life or their faith, or just wanting to know different things, trying to figure out different things rather from their own perspective. It's about really hearing where they're coming from. It's also about being honest with how you're feeling too. So if your older kid's coming to you, or I'll just say for me, when my older kids come to me and they're sharing about something that's interesting to them and what they're wanting to do, and they're kind of testing the waters to see how I feel about it, I'm honest. I'm honest about how I personally feel about it. I'm honest about church teaching. I'm honest about what I've read in the Bible, what I know to be true. And I'm also there to listen and to be charitable with my response and to be understanding. Do I always do it perfectly? No. And that is not the goal here. I know that sometimes we feel like perfection is really going to be like what we need in parenthood. But I personally feel if we were perfect, our kids would never go looking for Jesus. They would have found perfection in their home growing up, and what's the point of looking for God? So I think that sometimes our mess ups and our personal confusions in some ways can be convictions in our children's hearts to really look for Christ and start studying the scriptures themselves and start learning their catechism themselves. But I just do think it's really important to listen to them, to be charitable and understanding with what they say, but to also be honest with them in a loving and charitable way ourselves with how we personally feel and what the catechism and the Bible and church teaching says. Okay, number 7 is patience. Patience not only for them specifically as older kids, but also patience for yourself and patience for your life as it changes. So I went from having 6 children about 11 and under to then having 2 teenagers, older teen years, and still having little kids. Our day looks completely different, and that will actually lead me into the next one. But real quick, I want to stay on patience. So I had to become patient with my life circumstances, with the changes in how we spend our time, how I needed to be present, how I needed to be able to realize that some of my goals that I'm making, like for my health, so I can be more present with my kids, is going to take longer than it did when I was younger. You know, the things that their needs are going to take longer than I would like. If a child starts to present some type of a food allergy and I have to completely change everyone's way of eating for a little while to figure it out, and then I realize, okay, I can't do that. I can only change the way this child is eating. What do I make? How do I do it? Like, that takes time. It's not going to be a quick fix. And those are more practical, food, everyday life, but also patience just in our hearts with our children, because they're going through so much. This world is so, every generation, the kids are going through something way different than what the parents went through. And I feel like what our kids are growing up and our older kids are growing up and our younger ones, it's so different than anything that I experienced. So being patient with that, because that's a lot for them to try to wade through and figure out. And it's a lot for me, like, to know how to be present with them and love them and encourage them through it, and still listen to them and, and guide them in ways that they needed to be guided. It's just going to be, you're going to need patience. That's the suggestion, is patience. I just think it's so important. Okay, I say this one for last because I feel like it's all this stuff added together, and it has to do with your older kids, but it also has to do with you as the mother. If you are a mother of a large family and you have older kids, middle-aged kids, and younger kids, I have come to terms with this, and almost every mother I have spoken to that has a large family, almost all of them have experienced the same thing. Acceptance that our younger children will be in some ways raised very differently than our older children. This honestly was heartbreaking for me when I tried to fight it for so long and tried to make sure these little ones had the same exact, home life as the older kids did. And I realized one day I just couldn't do it. And the acceptance of that was so hard. And the process from going from what I was trying so hard to keep to accepting it, that process, it just I needed patience, like I said in number 7, but it was really, really hard. My younger kids spend so much time in the car for pickups, I don't do drop-offs. My husband does drop-off in the morning, but I do the pickups, and then sometimes I pick up, take them home, and then go pick up for another, like someone has a sports or like drama or something like that, and there's all these pickups. There is just a lot of time in the car, and it's just so hard when you spent so much time with, I'll just speak for myself, with my first 3, I spent so much time with the home and making sure I was baking and having all these lovely toys and being so selective about this or that. So home life was so peaceful, and they had lots of time to just play. And the younger kids now, it's just very different. I do try to be intentional, though. The hours that we are home, I try to be intentional about what we do and how it feels, how it smells, the lighting, all that I do try to be intentional. But even that, sometimes I cannot do it. The one thing that really did help me with this part in acceptance was that I truly believe in my soul, and obviously because the way things are ordered, that God knew the order of our children, who would be born first, who would be born last, who would be born in the middle, what kind of parents that oldest one was going to get, in my husband and I, because we are very different than when we first started out as parents. Not only because people make those commercials where oh, the parents are so lax now. Not like that, but just what we knew in life, what we were doing in life. With our first 2 older 2 kids and a little bit of the third one, my husband got out of the Navy with the first one, went to Franciscan University. For 4 years, we had some babies, in Ohio. We had home births. Everything was very home-centered. We homeschooled. My husband was a student. He flipped cars on the side. Then these next couple ones come. He's working at the, parish level. We had very little money. We spent a lot of time at the parish. We come and help my husband with things. And then in the next set, my husband was working at the diocesan level. It was very different. And we've also moved a lot in all those moves. So my youngest one, her first move was when she was 3 years old. And if we end up staying here till she's all grown, which we hope and pray is the plan, that's God's plan, she will never move after 3 years old. Whereas like our oldest, he moved a lot. They just have all different types of lives. We have more money, not a ton, but we have more money now with the younger ones. We have also help from the state with like homeschooling so we can get them into programs. Our older 3 kids, we were so poor at the like as a student in the parish level, we couldn't afford any of that stuff. I try to find free things. I try to have tons of play dates. The younger ones, they hardly have play dates, but we have them in different programs. You know, it's like, so the acceptance of that, of God's will within our lives and all that we're doing, I just feel like that's a very important piece, especially if you have older children and you have a large family. Okay, so these are my 8 suggestions for any mothers that have older children, as well as mothers who might have older children and younger children. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I did try to keep it simple and not too much, and honestly, I'm just one mama trying to figure it out alongside what the Lord's calling me to within my specific family. I don't really find a lot of this content on YouTube about having older kids and just gentle suggestions that actually make sense to me. So I thought I'd make a video about this. I kind of felt a calling about it this morning when I started doing my devotion to Our Lady of Sorrows, and I just felt a call to make this specific video. It hasn't even ever been on my mind, so I thought I better do the video. But anyway, I hope you all have a beautiful day. I'd love to hear in the comments below if you have suggestions about mothering at different phases, and if you think it would be an encouragement to another mother to go down and read, please put it in the comments below. Again, if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. If you think this video would encourage another mama, please share it. And I hope you guys have a great day. God bless.